Welcome to my podcast. This is the JOYFull podcast and is a raw journal of the mindfulness revolution that I'm documenting in my way, that I'm trying to do my best to compel, because the revolution of the discovery, empowerment, and enlightenment of the self and understanding of others through that is at an all-time high and an all-time potential to break down some of the walls and some of the problems that we have so we can begin focusing on some more legit stuff to solve together to improve the world. So let's keep this thing going a long time. This is my documenting of what happens to it and my attempt to make it go as long and as strong as possible. My name is Ethan Edward Sherritt. I am the host of this creator-funded podcast. And today I do have a guest. This is an artist and professor named Paul Rucker. He is a professor at VCUArts at Virginia Commonwealth University. He travels the world. He's given TED Talks and puts up concerts featuring his bass and cello looping performances along with visual arts, all of his creation. His exhibits at the moment are at Museum of Contemporary Art. Am I saying this right? The Institute of Contemporary Art in Richmond, Virginia. They will be traveling to various parts of the world, just like he is. He's a very frequently traveling, performing man. Check out some of his concerts on YouTube, some of his exhibits, and see what the comments say. People find his work to be compelling, interesting, haunting, disturbing, and often simply effective, entertaining. He's got a sense of humor. Check out my conversation with Paul Rucker. What I want to do is do a podcast, and it's recording now.
Okay.
But there's a flaw in the newest version that you don't
That's
get to
That's a digital thing there. This looks like a download digital.
Oh, it's supposed to look like this microphone
right.
And the levels, so you can see when you're redlining and stuff like that.
Have you reinstalled it?
Yeah, and they know it, and I just can't find a better thing that does this, because even though it blocks out part of it when we're recording, the editing aspect of it is still legit.
They know it because it's a error, or did they have to take away certain
it was
because they got sued?
When Android came out with the new software update.
Yeah.
Like for the S8.
I hate when that happens.
I know. And then what can you do? And then you can't go back to the old one. They're like, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. So
it's flawed. Yeah.
One of the things I'm trying to do is make sure that when I say, all right, the podcast is over, and I'm like, thanks, dude. And then we have a good conversation after I turn it off.
Yeah. Really? No, you keep it running. You get the conversation. You get a good conversation each time, right?
Yeah, and it's not going to start with where it starts. It's going to start with whenever it gets good.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool.
And we don't have to keep on looking at the microphones.
No, I just meditatively look. I like technology, so
yeah,
it's fascinating to me.
But, however, that's what we're doing. So thank you. You could sure get a lot of people who would want you to come on their podcast and talk, man.
No, I mean, I enjoy talking about things, and we've talked a lot, so this will be nice and different perspective, because a lot of folks, they have, strangely enough, weird agendas. People are using stories to sell advertisement, so they're not always about the story. And I don't want to call out any publications or any.
Well, there's an industry called journalism
It's extinct though, right?
Yeah, which if you want to be, and I studied that. That's what I went to school for. And then it becomes such that like what you're working on is just making it. Now it's, I mean, clickbait is a real phrase.
And my work with Klan robes has definitely been used as clickbait. I mean, I've seen McDonald's ads and other ads before about the news story, and even on, I look at CNN for not because they're a great news source, just because they're like the least common denominator. I kind of want to see how they're framing the news, and then I go to the Guardian or somewhere else. But I'll go to CNN and there'll be horrific stories, and they'll be preceded by advertisement. When there's like a school shooting, I think they pick and choose and they say, we don't want it to be on that before it goes live. So I think they actually choose, they're very careful about certain things, not having advertisers before. So I'm always fascinated what has advertising and what doesn't have advertising.
I haven't paid attention to what the advertisements are after a shooting.
They don't want to have their name in front of it.
Yeah.
Advertisers don't. Unlike a major shooting.
Do you think that there are professionals that work at advertising agencies that are like, well, we have to pay for this tone that can be aired after a violent act because it still makes us respectable. We still get our word out, and that's actually valuable because if we tone it in a way that sells the product with all those viewers, it's not like, hey, Paul, let's get a Bud Light. It's like, then you show the one that has the Clydesdales running down and like the bonding.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking of more like if there's a school shooting and they have a Remington gun commercial, they're not going to do that. It's
Probably not.
It's just some things are just, it will be posted on social media. People get really upset because bad ad campaigns get a lot of press now. When Dove had that advertisement where they like, had the black girl, take it, undress, and she reveals that she's white under there. That went viral.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, because they took it down pretty fast. Or the monkey thing, the H&M with the kid. They had the monkey reference on a shirt.
Yeah.
He was modeling that. That went viral in H&M. I mean, they trashed the store somewhere because of a bad advertisement. So a bad advertisement from years ago might have just went, oh, yeah, that's not good, and nothing happened. But now it goes viral and it incites people to riot or destroy things.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. You seem like you're in touch with like pop culture because as like a thermometer of the times.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm 50 now, so it's a little trickier when you try to stay hip with language and, trends and things. They change quickly. And
do you do that with music? Pop music?
Not anymore. I can't keep up. I can't do it. I hit that threshold to where I don't know what the latest, and they'll say someone's name and I just don't know who they are. But I was obsessed growing up. There was nothing I didn't know. All genres, all styles, I kept up with it. And but something happened in the past probably 7 years. I just can't keep up with everything. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the things are rehashed, because I'll have my students in class will say, hey, check out this, and it's like, well, check out this, this is where they got it from, and your version is not nearly as good, nor is it original. But so I've lost a lot of enthusiasm for a lot of new music. I mean, occasionally there's amazing voices out there doing amazing things, but but this just still harken back to the old masters, like I don't want to say anyone's name.
You can. Oh yeah. You should. No, you shouldn't. I can.
Yeah, you can. Well, you don't have a reference to artists that it's like, wow, that's really cool, or she sounds like Billie Holiday, or wow, she sounds great, or she sounds like There's a lot of people who sound or try to get like the voice of Whitney Houston. I mean that's such a little body and huge voice. She was probably one of the biggest voices. Man, and in the past,
I just had a dream about her the other day.
She was a force. She was a force. I mean, and there hasn't been a whole lot. I mean, even like look at rappers. I mean, Tupac. I mean, there really hasn't been many rappers since Tupac. Kendrick Lamar is doing some amazing stuff.
I think he is too.
Yeah,
I haven't
he's
listened
the
to it in
exception.
2 years, but when an album came out a couple years back, I was like,
To Pimp a
man,
Butterfly.
that's legit.
Was it To Pimp a
LA guy,
Butterfly?
right?
Yeah, yeah. Was it To Pimp a Butterfly?
I don't even know.
Yeah. It's it's gonna be all right. That's the song. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I Love Myself.
Oh,
That
yeah,
one.
yeah.
So that's The Pimp a Butterfly. That's
Yeah, yeah,
brilliant, brilliant. Actually, I was listening to it yesterday.
All
And
right.
no, it's wonderful, wonderful. I mean, he's the first rapper to win a Pulitzer, so he won this year.
A Pulitzer.
Yeah, that's usually something that people in jazz or classical.
That's legit.
It's legit. It's not a lot of money as far as prizes go, but it's not about the money. It's about the recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, he probably doesn't need the money. I mean, he did the Black Panther soundtrack and plenty of other things. So he's doing okay. But
His
yeah,
Grammy speech made it seem like he wasn't after the money, I think,
I think that's
And other people
yeah.
would say that too. However,
Yeah.
he seemed like he genuinely
I think he picks
willing
and
to do
chooses.
stuff that's not necessarily.
I bet he picks and chooses what he wants to do, and I think he always has. I doubt that you could find something that he didn't want to do in his
Nice.
catalog. So yeah, I believe that. Yeah. I
You know what?
definitely
This
believe
album I listened to, I tried to listen to
Mm-hmm.
as I was washing, folding clothes the other day at night.
Mm-hmm.
What's that guy's name? Post Malone.
Post Malone, yeah. Actually, yeah, I looked him up actually. He was on some late night show, and I think I liked it.
Yeah?
And then I went to look him up and say, who is this person?
Yeah.
And I can't. I don't want to say anything about it either. I mean, for me to look up something, there must have been something that I thought was either unusual or brilliant about him.
I'm with you. I was intrigued, and I was like, all right, this is now. This is now. That's why I looked it up.
And he was doing something very different. His delivery was different. And yeah, it's kind of odd. What'd you find out?
Well, I tried to, on Spotify, like Premium, you can listen to the album, and it's an awesome thing. I think that,
Really?
yeah, you
Wow.
can listen to I don't know, whatever I pay for it, but Spotify is one of those premium things that I'm
Yeah.
gonna always have. So you can listen to the album, almost every album.
Did they work out that deal with what the artist makes and all, or was that the other one? Oh, that is Spotify.
Yeah.
Because some artists were getting like tens of thousands of plays and making $12.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like the old music thing again.
There's probably a threshold.
I don't know, but I think if you're getting played tens of thousands of times, I don't know what it means.
Uh-huh.
How do you control that? I mean, you could do what Jay-Z did. I guess he started whatever that music service was. I haven't heard anything about it lately.
No, me
I
either.
can't even remember the name of it.
But Spotify just went public, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. The guy's he's made the most money anyone has ever in the music industry as an individual. He's made the most money than anyone. I mean, it's incredible.
Anyway, I listened to the first song and I was like, man, this is it's pretty cool. And then the second song and then the third song, I was like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I listening to this?
What happened? What was going through your brain?
What's going through my brain is it was so laden with you said you're not hip on phrases anymore, but the phrases, it seems like they're hard not to be hip
Right,
with.
right.
And so much about just like I could see a young artist being totally multi-millionaire, in which you have to talk about, especially in hip hop,
Right.
about how famous you are and how many girls are at your party and how you're
Right.
just 2 girls at a time for a long time and many girls and how cool your airplane is.
Right.
You're talking about this a lot,
Right.
but then you temper that with it's hard to have real friends. I gotta not trust anybody. So my crew is around me and they're ready to make them things go rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat.
Okay.
Okay, so that's where we get back to the edge and the sorrow and the sadness. And at this age, I'm 40 plus and you're almost 50.
I'm 50.
You're 50.
I turned 50 in April. Yeah.
All
Do you
right.
think he's parody, or do you think he's serious, or do you think he's some kind of parody satire thing?
That's where it gets you. It's like a parody, because you can't, if you're that, first of all, the dude is awesome, because I saw him before he became like this massive thing that he is now. Just like a few years ago at one of the Los Angeles music schools, they were like, hey, this is this artist, Post Malone. He's going to talk a little bit about like his career. And he just seemed like so willing to bring young kids in and laugh with them. I mean, he seemed like an awesome dude.
So he could be playing a character.
Yeah, it could be a character, but I'm thinking like when I've seen so many people come through a career when they skyrocket and then they become the John Lennon thing when they're like, now it's Zen. Now I want to do a concert on a roof and I want to sit in bed for 10 like days in a row and I want to bring peace. And I'm elevated now. And so I'm after like the elevation, and I don't know how people can be like on this path. I don't want to be before you get elevated. I don't want to be before you throw all that away and before you go to Africa and you go on a mission and then you come back and then you reinvent yourself, you write a book. I know that's coming, so I'm not going to get into this.
Yeah, no, but
you know
I mean, I saw a lot of people in Seattle. Well, I mean, rise. I mean, Seattle has a lot of amazing artists that can, not just Nirvana, Pearl Jam, but Fleet Foxes, and just tons of bands, and Father John Misty. He moved. He was in Seattle, and we did this thing called Rock Lottery. I played with him. He played drums, and he wasn't Father John Misty then. That whole thing is obviously a persona, because no one names their child Father John Misty, but it's a character, and it works. Yeah, it works, and I think people like to be. We like to play games. We like to, when little girls like to play tea, and pretend like they're princesses. And I think it never really goes away. I think cops want to pretend like they're superheroes. I think there's this persona that we take on when we do different things. The artists do it as well. Artists take on different personas when they're in different situations. Yeah. And I think many do. But yeah. But I think Post Malone might be pulling the wool over all of us, and just he might just be making fun of those lyrics. Actually, if I feel like anybody out there is being exploited or their sensibilities are like not informed, and that's why they like it, it's hard, even though if I've had a couple of drinks and I want to just a time and a place type of thing, I like this if I'm blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Even though it's still hard for me to like really dig it if I think the soul is just on its earlier path rather than its more informed path. What do you feel like? Do you think you listen differently if you like? Remember when we used to buy these things called CDs? We'd buy these things and they would cost sometimes $16-18, and we would have this one physical copy that we'd have to take the effort of putting in this machine and taking out to put another one in. So we actually, every CD that I bought, I knew really well because we would play it over and over again.
To know what the song after it is.
Exactly.
And to know how the thing is laid out.
Exactly. And albums were a concept album. Like we mentioned Kendrick Lamar, that's a concept album. It starts out with the vinyl sound. Every nigga is a star, and then it breaks into the tune, and you have the funkadelic voice guy, Clinton in there, and
is he?
Yeah, there's a lot of people on that album, and but the album as a whole, and at the very end when he's talking to his producer. His producer's talking about Nat Turner, 1831, but it ends so well with that in studio session. It's really a nice segue, but we don't have concept albums as much now. We buy singles. People they'll push a single if they can push one song. We did have the same thing. We had 45s, and then we had cassette singles, singles they called them. They were $3.49, and I used to work in a music store. And we sold a lot of them, and those profit margins were great. But I guess my question for you is like, do you think you'd listen to Post Malone differently if you actually bought the CD instead of listening to it on Spotify?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Then it'd be about a story that's presented. It would be better. I would have to. You're right. I would have to take it better.
Yeah, yeah. I think we listen differently when we have some level of investment, like real investment, as far as my artist that I admire greatly. This guy named Trimpin. He does kinetic sculptures. He is brilliant. He's won the MacArthur, Guggenheim, and tons of other awards. And he was a really good mentor when I first started doing interactive sound and video installations. And he gave me some good advice about, how, as far as wayfinding, as far as how people would approach the art piece. Because I always assume people would immediately know what to do, and they don't. They need instructions and directions. But one thing he did, he created this piece where people would go up and press a button, and these wooden shoes would start making music. These, is it Holland that has the wooden
clogs.
shoes, the clogs, yeah, the wooden shoes, and he'd have these, pneumatic hammers to hit inside, and it would make this really cool piece. So he noticed that people would come up to the piece and just hit the button, and then the piece would start, and then they'd walk away. But he decided to put a quarter, you had to put a quarter in to get it to play. And people, when they put a quarter in and it started, they would stay and listen to the whole thing because they invested one quarter.
What a study.
Yeah, I mean, they could have been just a dime, but they had some level of investment, and people feel good about being part of something. That's why I think that Kickstarter has done amazing things, because people like being part of a product launch. They like to say that I was an early investor in something without actually putting up millions of dollars. They can say, I gave $50 for the first version of these, this electronic thing, or these sets of revolutionary knives that don't rust and they can cut through a spare tire or something.
Yeah, whatever Kickstarter thing you can imagine.
It's brilliant. I think Kickstarter's a wonderful thing. I did my first campaign last year, and I hesitated doing it for years, and they cautioned me and say, maybe put it down lower, because I wanted to make it 20,000. I said, well, just do 10. So this is your first time. Got that in 2 days. And
Did you do the 10?
Oh, I got the 10. I got to 15.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to 15.
So you put it down to 10.
Put it down
on
to
the
10.
Advice being your first project, listening to your advice.
But I think if I'd gone to 20, I might have gotten it. Or then again, I might not have.
Because you blew away the 10.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, you get funding from strangers, people from across the country who've never, I don't know who they are, and I'll probably never meet them.
Was this for the sauce?
No, this was for Rewind, the earlier project that has the Klan robes and the wooden sculptures and video and animation. It's a show that I've taken to Eastern Washington, to Ellensburg, Washington, to Ferguson, Missouri. It's been to York, Pennsylvania, as well as Seattle and Baltimore. And part of the robes from that show are here at the ICA in Richmond.
Yeah.
Institute for Contemporary Art. But but it was to help maintain the show, and I just used some of that money today to get storage space, because I'm moving stuff around and inventorying it, and so it's a lot of work right now. Because I think a lot of people see artwork and they see, well, like people will see your final production, whether it be on the screen or stage, and then they don't know how much rehearsal went into it, and how much post-production went into it, how much rehearsal, how much time it took for you to learn your lines. So I think visual art is the same way. People want to pretend that it was just done over a weekend, or that it was easy. And I think a lot of artists want to try to make things seem like they're easy for some reason. And I think they want to have this, veneer of, this is natural for me, and I can make Picasso-esque type paintings, in my sleep, but it really takes a whole lot of work to produce any kind of art of quality, even if it's something I love improvised music, but even with improvised music, you have a history of doing that, and that's why you're good. It's like improv theater, same thing. You just can't be good at improv overnight. You hone those skills.
Man, about music, you've got to start with, when did you pick up an instrument, please?
4th grade. My mom was a church organist, and she actually learned to play music through a mail order course, and I talk about her during my second TED talk that's coming out hopefully soon. She's a big influence. Some love.
Cool.
Oh, I gave Mom a lot of love, and people like that, because moms, while raising 2 kids, she studied music and got her music degree through a mail order course. And she's extraordinary. She's an extraordinary person. And a lot of people would just give up and say, I can't go to regular school, so I'm not going to do it. So no, she did the mail order course, and she did a recital, and it was one of the most important days of her life, and it was amazing. And
So did you play that organ too?
I actually, the organ's still in the house. It's an M4. It's a nice organ, or an M3. It's in Hammond. It's a nice sounding organ.
Okay. Well, I don't know organs, but the string instruments, when did you get into that cello and bass?
Well, fourth grade I started playing bass, and I played that for years. I played in orchestras through the Southeast, Savannah Symphony, South Carolina Philharmonic.
All the way through grade school, all the way through high school?
I played all the way through middle school, high school, and got a scholarship to college. And
you studied at Juilliard or something like that?
No. I'm mostly self-taught. I studied at the University of South Carolina, and I got to college. I never had a private lesson.
Majored in music?
Majored in music composition, and wanted to do some performance. But the real lessons was outside of school. I played with bands. I played in jazz groups. I played like almost every night of the week, and I was a poor student. I mean, I had a horrible grade point average, but I was playing a lot. And I question education. I think people should really reconsider going directly into college after high school. But I think our parents are afraid that we're going to never go to college if we take a break. And I want to tell their other parents, friends that, he's taking a year off. It's like, oh, why? It's like the worst thing you could possibly do is take a year off from college. And now, I think, was it Sasha Malia? I think one of them might have done that. And if one of the Obama kids does it, it might make it in vogue for other kids to do it, because when you're mounting up these large amounts of expense, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, $80,000 a year or more, that's real money.
Wow.
And it's like, what do you and if you're studying in the arts, or there's not a direct pathway. I mean, you could study to be a doctor or a lawyer, and you may, be able to justify, in some ways, those guarantee of a job of some kind when you graduate, or even, in
I always
medicine.
think the world needs more doctors. Obviously, right?
They need more good doctors. I think we need longer visits. I think nurse practitioners. I think that's the doctor.
Good way to go.
That's the doctor of the future, because. Or the doctor of now, really. I think we just need more time in the examining room. The doctors don't ask nearly the same amount of questions as they used to. If you have a visit the last 10 minutes, that's a long one.
Dude, it's crazy. When your doctor comes in, you're just ready for him to be gone. It's like the professor at college, you're like, I'm not going to get to ask this guy more than one question the whole semester. And
make it good.
And he's going to be thinking about 3 other things when I'm asking it.
Yep. I don't know.
And he's out.
Yeah, well, they don't spend much time, and there's studies that show that they're not spending enough time, and they're not able to make a good evaluation, because a lot of things could be physical, but a lot of things could be psychological. They're not asking you, so are you how's much stress in your life? I mean, they used to ask these things. They ask about relationship stuff to just kind of get to the root of what else might be causing the symptoms that you may be having.
Yeah, but they don't do the holistic approach that much. Even though it sounds everywhere like there's a holistic approach that's getting more mainstream to be holistically minded, but you still see just prescriptions for stuff instead of, like you said, how are you sleeping? Do you realize how important sleep is?
Yeah.
How are you sleeping, by the way? Good?
No, man, I get up early. I've been getting up at like 5 in the morning and working. And my sleep is off fighting a sinus infection. And I'm a workaholic too, just like most people. I think most people are workaholics.
Yeah.
And we don't take care of ourselves. I'm trying to go to the gym more. I've been going to spin class, but between the sinus infection, spin class, and being just stressed about, what's next. I even have time off now, and I feel like I have too much work to do. And
as the exhibit's up, as this it was kind of like a big circuit of talks that you're coming off of, right?
I'm always constantly. I did one last weekend. I'm doing a performance in Baltimore this coming week. At the museum there, Walters Museum. there's always something, and I'm negotiating this museum, and I can say England. They just emailed me yesterday. They want to buy a piece, and it's just, you're, yeah, I don't have an assistant now, so juggling all these things, and I'm working on a book about the artistic process, and that people aren't talking about, the voices in our heads, and the imposter complex.
Fascinating.
Yep. And so
Dude.
every single artist that I've said this to, talk about this book to, they just nod their head up and down because,
I just think you're going to go there, man. I just think that.
oh, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's extremely uncomfortable because no one
This
ever
is an
talks
artist
about
of the
it.
uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, it's just one exercise in the book. The book is actually your personal book, and I'll teach the class with about 20 people. But and the workbook I'm designing, you don't have to share your workbook later or your words or anything you put into it, because you definitely write differently knowing that you're going to turn something in to share with someone.
Okay.
So you don't have to share anything, but you share within the group, but you don't have to share what's in your notebook. Because if I were to ask you to say, you don't have to do this, but say 10 adjectives that describe yourself, and you start writing 10 things that describe yourself, and now say do 10 more. You can start getting really uncomfortable and weird. It's an actual pretty intense exercise, because we actually deal a lot with this false self-perception of ourselves, and it's part of our brilliance, it's part of our gift, but it's also a curse. It makes us not put out crappy work, but it also can paralyze us from moving forward. So figuring out a way to use the negative voices as a tool to just help continue making quality things and producing quality ideas and engagements with folks, but not having it paralyze us to where we're not actually achieving our goals, is what this is about. Because we create our own personal limitation. We create this limitation. It's like the whole failure of imagination. Many artists have that with their career, because being an artist, you tell someone you're going to study. So, well, oh, you're going to go to college? What are you going to study? You say, I'm going to be a lawyer. They go, oh God, lawyer, great. I'm going to be a dentist. Oh, great. Pre-med. Oh, I'm going to be an artist. Oh. You are? Okay. I mean, when we have our tonal language, people, they want to almost say, I'm sorry to hear this. It's almost like you had a death in the family. And I think, and so I want to, and I had this woman, she asked me on the plane 2 years ago, and she asked me, what did I do? I say, I'm an artist. She said, oh, is that hard? I say, no, not at all. It's the easiest thing that I've ever had to do. Honor your own authentic individual voice as an artist, that is hard. But when you finally do it, it's actually, if you have to ignore your influences.
Okay.
Ignore all the people that you admired. Ignore the people that actually inspired you to actually go into the field, and say,
ignore the people that inspired you.
Ignore them, because you'll never be as good as your heroes.
I'm all into this phrase, man, that I've just been into. I'm seeing it everywhere more now. It's your true north.
Yeah,
or is it your north or your true north?
It's true. Yeah.
But the more you get in touch with that authenticity, to the point when you realize where it's veering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I don't know anyone that plays a cello like me. I played cello totally different because I'm self-taught, and I embraced this experimentation, and I just kept doing it even when no one was listening. I'd play on the street as a busker, and people would pass. And then my motivation was to get people to stop and listen. So I would do this playing, and then people would stop and listen. And then I knew I had something. But just spending hours and hours on the street busking just for change and dollars, it really taught me a lot of connecting. But it also gave me space to try my own authentic voice. And as a visual artist, I think one of the advantages that I have is I've never studied art, except I took an art appreciation class, and that was it.
Here?
So I've never taken, no, this is when I was in college. When I was a freshman or sophomore, I took Art 110. And it was good. It was a good class. It was really, really basic. But that's the only art class I've ever taken. So now I'm in museums, which is, but I think the part of that gift is I don't speak or think like someone that has an MFA or any degree, and I really want to demystify.
But here's the thing, you kind of do.
Oh no!
But yeah, no. When I watch you talk, you're like, you captivate those people because those are a lot of times that's your audience.
Yeah.
And you're right there with them. One of the things you did was that just makes people shut the frick up and listen. Is do you start off with Bach? And you're like, and then you stop it.
Yeah, I do that.
And then you say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then people's jaws are like, holy God.
Oh, they laugh. They laugh.
Yeah.
I did that at TED actually, and it's funny because they just laugh. I said, we're going to innovate. I mean,
I saw a couple of your shows when you didn't do that. I think it was Tacoma.
Tacoma, I didn't do it.
Okay.
I think I did it at TEDx Berkeley. And yeah, it's I think I need to figure out. I need to figure out some other jokes though. But why be? I mean, there's plenty of people that play Bach. The thing is, Bach ruined it for everybody. He took music as far as counterpoint, fugues. No one has ever gone. You can't do what Bach did and do it better. He just did it, and
people want. It's so graceful that people want to hear it again.
It is, but the thing is we get hooked in this nostalgia thing, and I feel the saddest for people who have careers because they, you really remind me of blank, and people have careers based on nostalgia, and it's like it's so damaging. Right. You can't be great. I think one of the things about the young lions, these guys are amazing. Joshua Redmond and Christian McBride. All those folks that were coming up during the '90s. They were amazing players. I think I remember Christian McBride saying something. I don't want to paraphrase too much. Was basically they never could be seen as great or as individuals because they're always being compared. I mean, Christian McBride is always being compared to Ray Brown. Any sax player playing, alto's going to get compared to Charlie Parker, every tenor, John Coltrane, Lester Hall,
to Kenny G.
Not Kenny G, but actually there's people that make plenty of money sounding like Kenny G.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you can't afford Kenny G, you definitely there's plenty of folks that are definitely influenced by his sound, whether you like it or not.
Well, I just wanted to give you props for saying you don't speak to like the academia of the art world. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that you kind of do, but it seems like you're not. I heard you with them in the palm of your hands. Mm-hmm. To take them where you're about to take them, I think.
We're storytellers.
With storytelling. But then you're it seemed to me like you're not going to leave behind the people that are not of that world. Like like it's very important to you to be like, to keep it so that like, yeah, I understand this this talk that would have other people be so esoteric that they're gone. You're like, yes, and I'm talking to you and I understand that, but I'm going to keep it at this level that I almost value those who don't get a chance to understand it, right?
Yes. And part of that is
like tug of war. You're like, I got you, but I'm not letting go of you guys over here.
You can't. And when I give tours in the gallery, sometimes there's kids with adults, and you're speaking all of them. So I have to do this talk to where I'm not going to insult the kids by talking down to them, but I'm not going to leave them behind. If they have a question or if there's a word that comes up that I think they don't understand, I'll try to explain it. And I think a fourth grader should understand it. I really believe it's fourth graders, but you also still can keep it intriguing. Mm-hmm. And
they should know that there's something to it. It's not just that a fourth grader did it. So you do have to be able to go back to its inspiration or its meaning a little bit.
And also I love talking about it. I came into the gallery on the 4th of July to talk about, I give impromptu tours. I was going to come in for about an hour. I was here for 5 hours. Mm-hmm. So, because I love giving these tours and I love answering questions, and people have plenty of questions. If it's a youth group that comes through, I give them a short tour, and they always have questions. But I think the separation that we have, the intellectuals, like, oh, you're going to go see this play as versus this play, or you're reading this as versus this. There's a hierarchy in things. I didn't even need to name the books or the plays, but there's a hierarchy in the arts, and it really doesn't belong. But I think the problem has been with years of segregation that included the symphony, the ballet, the opera, and museums, where there were the bastions of white supremacy. They kind of reminded you of who's in charge and who's on top. The white composers, the white choreographers.
It's unreachable to anybody who's not in that sphere.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Because it's such an unreachable thing.
Well, you think about who had the patrons. If you think about whose language is held in history. If we know about Bach, if Bach was black, probably not. If these certain composers had patrons, they were, that they had people that supported their artwork. But then you had this, African drumming and other traditions that were verbal traditions that were passed along, and this is something they did every hour, many hours during the day. But then you have people like Steve Reich and other composers that are heavily influenced by African drumming. They wouldn't have a lot of these minimalist composers. They wouldn't be in existence without the influence of these polyrhythms that African drummers created, from the culture that's thousands of years.
But is there an iconic figure that we're all about iconic figures?
Yeah.
We're all about
Yeah.
It's that guy.
Yeah.
Is there just also that there's been a lack of, there's no way going through the last 150 years there hasn't been, it's all white composers, right?
Yeah, but
until
yeah.
What, 1920s?
No. I think, the thing is, black composers have always been there, but they never got a chance to be on the stage. And you can say racism created jazz, because jazz musicians, you could have smaller ensembles. It was something that was invented by, through African American blues tradition. And we have to go back even earlier.
So that came out of freedom. Man, I have no idea what year that would have been. There's this
But real quick though, I got to say, drumming was made illegal during Jim Crow. Drumming was made illegal during slave time. Drumming was made illegal because it was a way people could communicate. If you could communicate, you could organize. If you could organize, you could be trouble. That's why after Nat Turner's raid in 1831, it was made illegal for blacks to learn how to read. That was a law. So it was also made illegal for blacks to have guns. It was also made illegal for blacks to assemble for more than 12 people at a funeral. It was that number changed, and a lot of those laws came out of South Carolina. And so it's important to know, who's controlling the narrative and what platform they were given. Who was given the stage and who was not given the stage is a huge thing.
Yeah, only people who play the game get into the game. You got to play ball.
Well, and
it's such a elitism thing, man.
It is. It's not just. If you can play the game and be black but not get in. You got Paul Robeson.
Paul Robeson.
Yeah, amazing voice. Yeah. Or
who's that?
He's an amazing, legendary singer.
Okay.
Or Leontine Price. Marian Anderson, actually.
Okay.
I was thinking of Marian Anderson, who's, during a time where racism was, big and segregation was big. These people were taken around. They were given access to these concert halls to play in a concert hall they couldn't sit in. And that's our history with a lot of the arts. There's a savant named Blind Tom. He could hear.
Yes, that's who.
You're trying to remember him? Yeah. His owner, slave owner, took him around and made millions of dollars. For that time, millions of dollars.
I knew there was some.
Yeah.
I knew there was some kind of.
He's a story that should be told.
Some radio. Dude.
What's that?
I listened to something about Blind Tom on this. It was a whole complete hour when I was delivering pizzas once, and this show said this whole hour is all about Blind Tom, and it would really go into where he was at, and some of the things that he would do would completely dazzle, freakishly out of this world talent. Playing a violin in two hands at a time? What would he do that would absolutely wow people?
Well, he could hear something one time and play it back note for note.
That's right. That's right.
That's one of his abilities, and he also wrote music as well. I've tried to buy some of artifacts from Blind Tom, but they're so expensive. There's one program book that was like $3,000 or something.
So one of the reasons I asked you that, like, what are the iconic figures and stuff like that, is because I do think that history has gems in it that are not known, that people are not freaking writing about, making amazing movies about in a legit way. And those things are going to happen, man. Like, there's going to be a Amadeus type of movie, winner of Best Picture, winner of best screenplay, best sound. Like,
Think so?
Yeah, it's.
You have a lot. You have faith in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder. I love Black Panther. It's a cool movie, but it seemed like it was a prequel. It set up that big next Marvel movie that just even broke more records.
Yeah.
And I think it's with movies.
You mean
Hollywood,
the whole franchise thing?
The franchise. I mean, you watch South Park?
No, but I love it.
They did a great episode on their superhero franchise. Go check it out.
Did they just nail it?
They nailed it, and they're making fun of Netflix as far as just signing anything and everything. But I mean, even with visual art, there are people that are rock stars that are selling ridiculous amounts of art as a commodity. I mean, they commoditize art to where it's money, and there's speculators. There's people who are bidding up the value of people's artwork, and it's a world that just makes me ill, And I made a conscious decision that I don't particularly care to be part of that world, and I lose a lot of money not being part of that world because I'm in a position to probably take advantage of that. But it would be foolish to not follow your gut. That's telling you that this is a slimy situation, because you want people to take your work home that are going to appreciate your work. You want people to go see your movie, because they heard it was a good movie, not because it grossed $100 million last weekend, and they're curious about it. I mean, that's a big thing that spurs folks.
When a movie's legit, like legitimate, and there are some that come out every single.
Have you seen
maybe not every year, but
I loved one last week. I saw one the other day that I really enjoyed. The telecommunication, the call center, Boots Riley film. I can't remember. Sorry to bother you. Sorry to disturb you. But it's brilliant.
Is it about a calling center in India?
No, it's about a call center where this black guy working in this call center, and he's not doing well. Then the next guy next to him, who's played by Danny Glover, says, "Use your white voice." And then the black guy.
Oh, is this out in the theater right now?
It's out in the theater now. The guy that was in Get Out, he's been in Selma, and he's in Atlanta. He's amazing actor. I mean, he just has this presence and ability. I think he's
that looked phenomenal. It had gravity even in the preview, that it wasn't like other movies.
It's not like other movies.
Yeah.
It is, but I don't want to tell you what it's like.
Yeah.
But it definitely. Nothing like coming out now. I mean, if you watch, The Naked Lunch or something, but it just flows well. It just flows well because there's a lot of layers to it, and it's just done well. It's acted well. There's a beautiful animation sequence in the middle of the movie. I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but there's a beautiful, amazing animation sequence that's done exceptionally well. I went to see the movie the other day, and a sister of the guy who did the animation was at the theater, and she's an artist as well, and she told me that her brother did the animation, and I was like, it killed it. It was great to see.
Yeah.
It. But but there's artistry out there. And I don't think we don't have to look hard to find it. I think with all the channels out there, we have a lot more options now. And there's a really amazing quality on HBO, FX, with Atlanta. When HBO had The Wire, I mean, that was killer. David Simon did a fantastic job.
People talk about that with irreverence, like The Wire.
No, I bought it. I bought it, and this is before I decided to move to Baltimore.
With a reverence.
Yeah.
With
no.
a.
But
I mean, like people are still like, dude, that thing holds up.
But it's
You gotta watch it.
it is a
sometime.
classic.
Yeah.
I'd watch it again, and again, I own it. I would watch it again without hesitation
If you ever have time.
if I had time. Yeah, I still haven't
But you
seen. I still want to see. I haven't seen any Game of Thrones, which wouldn't be into. But
Oh,
House
goodness.
of
Can we
House of
get away
Cards.
from that?
House of Cards. I like to see. I saw at the beginning. And I looked at like 15. No, the first 8 minutes of House of Cards, the
Yeah.
first episode. I said, yep, I'm going to say this for when I get sick.
You could tell, right?
I
You
said,
could
this
tell it
is
was
brilliant.
good.
I said, this is really, really good. I mean, and it's so weird because I've seen so many of these guys, these actors. I mean, I'm of that generation that saw Tom Hanks when he was dressing up as a woman in Bosom Buddies and him to have a real career. So I saw Malcolm in the Middle, the guy in, Breaking Bad. I saw him in that, and you see these guys launch, and I say, wow, you can really act. But they don't get that opportunity to really act because they can get typecasted in these roles of silliness. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, none of the Gilligan's Island folks could ever act anywhere else
They're
because
way
they
out
got
of they couldn't act their way off an island.
They couldn't, but the show was so successful, so popular. They go for another gig. No one could take them serious.
Dude, the
Another actor.
Gilligan's Island phenomenon, that's why I think like when Netflix has to like keep a show coming, even like the ones that I think are usually have such cool things to offer like HBO and Showtime, they still have to keep a show going. And so that's why I love film, is because it has to say, what is it going to say in one film?
It does.
It has to be one. This is not, we're going to keep you watching for 10 years.
But we just talked about franchise, though.
Yeah.
I mean, their comic books are back not because of comic books. They're back because Stan Lee's making more money now than he probably ever imagined he would.
Right.
Just through these movies.
And they're all that makes sense.
Yeah.
Man, they're all that makes sense business-wise. Like, why would you not do it?
Why would you not do it?
Business-wise.
Business-wise, I don't know. I don't know. I think we're living in a situation where we want to try to create as many distractions from the reality. So I think they play a role in therapy.
Distractions are nice, man.
Mm-hmm.
You can get too distracted, though. Let me just give you props real quick for making things visual.
Thanks.
And
Appreciate that.
Like big concepts, like the light up board.
Oh, cool.
The light up board.
Proliferation, yeah.
Yeah, like some of the things are hard to take down no matter what. The Klan robes, man. It's not just Klan robes sitting there. It looks like actual men. A lot of them. Mm-hmm. How big are those dudes? 6'6"?
They're 7 feet tall.
7 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's
with the hood at the top of the hood, yeah.
It's terrifying. Just walking past it and looking down it, it's like, oh geez. I think I just saw all the art I can take, and I can't even get around it. It is.
They've been to 7 cities. I mean, they mostly positive. I mean, people get freaked out. Some people walk right in and walk right out.
I mean, honestly, dude, I'm an open-minded person. I'm on board with how much you have to convince people of the hard things that they're not paying attention to. I'm on board that, but I cannot be around those freaking Klan robes. I can't do it.
Here's the funny thing. I made the first one in 2014, and it was amazing because I dressed it up and had a mannequin. I dressed it up, and I forgot that it was there. Then I was reading a book and I was raising my head, and it kind of startled me a little bit. But after a bunch of them, but after the first show, I put them in my studio. I put them on my table, and I had like 20 of them fully dressed in my studio, and I kept them fully dressed, and I go to sleep at night.
You mean
them.
the mannequins?
The mannequins and fully dressed in the robes.
Yeah.
So you stay in the same room. It's like immersive therapy. If you were to see them all the time, things don't have effect on you anymore. If you were afraid of worms, and every day for 5 minutes you put your hand in a tub of worms, the fear of worms or what they would do to you as far as make you feel disgusted, they would go away. And it's about my TED Talk is about these symbols that have power over us, and it's an iconic symbol that it has power over us. And if you were to go to Spain for Easter week, you'll see a religious sect that's wearing a similar outfit, and that's where the Klan basically got their design from. because the Klan, hasn't been around for hundreds of years. It was, its first incarnation was 1866, and they were making their own costumes then, so it wasn't. Then, 1920s Klan, they started a standardized design is what I use here for my design. But long story short, if you expose yourself or to something, you will not. It doesn't have power over you anymore. Period.
No power.
No power at all. I go in there and I dress them. I made them, and they're the best quality Klan robes in the world, and because they had to be. I just couldn't.
But you're not going to make money selling those things. You refuse to do it. It's not about the money. It's about the message.
I will not sell it to an individual. What I would do is it would have to be an institution, a museum that would show it and take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's with any piece. So I wouldn't give. I didn't make these things to sell. I mean, my theory around art and art making and art selling, if you go into your studio and you think about what am I gonna make to sell, your artwork, for me, your artwork is ruined before you even start putting the paint on the canvas or start to mold the clay. If you think about, like if you're working on a movie and you're thinking, as you learn your lines, well, I'm gonna make a lot of money for this. You don't weave that into your memory as you're learning the lines, because you're not going to be in the place of authentic playing this character. I mean,
I've done it. I've tried to be like, I can. This would sound exactly, if I said it exactly like this, that would be such a moment. Yeah, but you're right. It's wrong.
It's wrong, and you
and it's not going to land.
It's not going to land at all. I mean, you really have to. I mean, that's why if you want to play this character, you need to study this character, someone or who's doing things like them, and focus on that. I mean, I really like when people like, you got to play a person who does this, and they actually go learn how to do this. Even though it takes hours to learn how to do. I think that's you can really. You're not going to feel someone's pain, because I mean, you have the option of leaving. I mean, you can't go to say I'm going to work at Burger King and do it as research, and then.
That's a really good point.
If you like got rid of all your other assets and you had to actually work at Burger King in order to pay your rent, then you might actually learn how it feels to work at Burger King.
Right. So there's if you get to that level and you think that you know that, then you have to really focus on knowing you got to that precipice of there's one other thing that you have to explore. What if there's no escape?
Exactly.
And dwell in that for a little bit.
And
in several different ways, and a lot of different angles.
Yeah, like no safety net. I mean, when you really truly have no safety net, and it feels different. I mean, one time I didn't have enough money to repair my tire on a car. Or there's one scene in the movie. This won't ruin the movie, but I remember I only had enough money, but like 85 cents worth of gas in the car. I mean, you
33
really,
cents, man. Is my record.
33
cents.
See, when you're at that point,
terrified.
Yeah, and that's a real thing. It's a real thing, and I see people on the street now. I mean, there's homeless older people, and it scares me. You know? And it scares me to think that we are in a society that we allow people to go homeless. And this is every city USA. And but this is.
Does your work bring you down, man?
No, it empowers me.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling the stories. I have a deed of sale for a 3-year-old Negro boy named Sam who was sold for $30 from 1806. I'm able to tell his story because I bought this deed and this paper to show that this actually happened in Maryland. This happened in the United States. That we had child separation a long time ago. It's just not something that's happening now. It happened a long time ago, and it happened. If you were a slave and you had a child, that child was not your child. It belonged to your owner. It belonged to your slave master, and that's not talked about enough.
Right.
And then, and there's a story of in Richmond of Henry Box Brown. He worked extra hard for his slave master, Allen, of Allen and Ginter. Ginter was the richest man in
our city here.
And actually, he's the richest man in the state by the time he died in 1898. But long story short, Allen was overseer for Box Brown, who was Henry Brown at the time, and he worked extra hard to keep his family intact because he had a wife and 3 kids, but they were not his. They could be sold at any time, and Allen eventually sold them. And Henry Brown was so distraught, he figured out a way to have himself mailed to Philadelphia, but he couldn't just call in sick.
Mailed.
Mail in a box. So he was mailed in a box with the help of a Quaker and I think a free slave and another white guy. But basically, in order to get time off, he actually burned himself with sulfuric acid on his hand. He burned himself to the bone in order to get time off, and then he was mailed to Philadelphia.
That is spirit like crazy, man.
Yeah.
And we're still going. That one's going to lose battery, but it might have only right at the time that we talked about whatever.
That's
that might
cool.
be the part that people want to hear.
That's cool.
Like after we got into the movie bit.
No,
Because
I think we're doing good.
No, this is still doing good. The reason I asked you if it brings you down is because what do you think of the power of yourself in creating your own reality? What's the phrase for that?
Oh, no.
The law of attraction.
No, for me it's about just acknowledging the truth.
The law of attraction, though.
Law of attraction?
Yeah.
Explain.
So, the law of attraction meaning, to me, it's whatever you surround yourself with and whatever energy you seek out in the world that becomes more of your world. So if I really like gung-ho military stuff, and I think that the world's at war and the wars are never going to end, and I join the military and I seek out for how bad things are in the Middle East, and that's my world. Law of attraction. I'm in it. And people say that like if you practice surrounding yourself with this or that, that's going to be your existence. So I wonder if like my podcast was called the Mindful Revolution because I really believe that there's this momentum building for people being aware in a way that's fresh.
Yeah.
That really will elevate, be open to a lot of things that past generations have not been open to because of the increased like third graders taking meditation classes, understanding the power of the self, understanding the need for love of the self. So that's the law of attraction. And I wondered if, because you're always a happy guy to talk to, and when I asked you how you sleep, you're like, it wasn't for you can't fall asleep. It was just you're compelled to get up.
I got several things to say. There's a law of attraction, but there's a law of distraction, and there's also this. Or curating. I think the danger we have right now is just there's a lot of false enlightenment. I think a lot of folks want to see a problem, but they don't want to see how they are part of that problem. And I know my carbon footprint is big. I mean, I just went to Costco today. I shop. I'm renovating a house. A house for me. It's a decent sized building. I think we go to the news that's going to validate us and not make us feel bad about who we are, or what we're doing, or what we're not doing. So I think there's something to be said around that. And I think there are people that are meditating, which is a great thing to meditate. But I think we still make ourselves numb to the people who are standing on the corner. I think you can be enlightened, but you also can have your horse blinders on to where you can see straight ahead and feel good about straight ahead, and you can miss a lot of what's on the left and what's on the right of you. And I think there's a danger in the normalization of suffering. If we normalize suffering to where, we have this tape loop in our head of why this person is homeless and we're not homeless, to justify this and figuring out some way to blame them for their situation, as opposed to understanding that many people are one paycheck away from being homeless, or one paycheck away from
present.
exactly. So it's real. It's real. So we have to acknowledge that that we have far more in common with the people that are homeless than we do with hedge fund billionaires.
Yeah.
And that has to be acknowledged. But we want to admire people that have money, because money is our God, and religion in many ways. But I think we have to address these disparities and why these disparities exist, and why this system is the way that it is. And why do we have why do we have segregated neighborhoods, workplaces, and schools? And it's interesting. My TED talk went on YouTube today, and it's already hit 20 million listens in one day, and there's like last I checked, there were 800 comments. And they're going after, a lot of trolling, stuff.
Dude,
and some people were emailing me too, to my email account. I don't know how they figure out what my email address is. That could be.
That's
It's
a
really
law
weird.
of attraction, like disaster to read comments.
Oh no, I can.
Of any article.
I'm getting them bound. I'm making a book out of them.
Yeah?
They're a hoot. Oh man.
Wow.
Well, people will make comments based on not even listening to it.
I know,
And they'll
and I
look
don't know
at
how
it,
that cannot just twist you into knots.
because I know they're making comments without listening to it. I mean, if someone made a negative comment and they gave a clear detail, like I listened to this one section here, and I think you're full of crap because blah blah blah. If they made a legitimate statement, I go, you know what, you might be right. I might be full of crap, but no one does that. There's a lot of false stats. I don't even have enough time. If I could have hired 2 assistants right now to work full time to keep up with comments. They couldn't do it.
No.
Because they're like, one person said, before the Civil War, only 2% of the population owned slaves. I'm thinking, nope, that's actually wrong. It's actually 40% in some places, and up to 35 to 42%, depending what part of the country you're in.
Dude, the light up map of
proliferation
that you put on your show and played an improvised looping based
the cello and bass and
the cello
percussion.
and bass, that, and to see those blips on like that type of data is so hard to get people to absorb anything.
And that's why I did that.
And that was like, all right, the sheer numbers of. There was one you did for prisons.
Yeah.
Did you do another one for slaves?
No,
So
I did one for slave count.
That was like,
here's
why I'm thinking slave.
map, yeah.
Is because geographically the prisons were all in those exact same states.
Yep.
That
They're
are.
dense.
It was like, of course,
So-
and those that. It's like metadata that can actually get into your brain hole and actually be processed. And dude, to me, politically, the fact that those same states have like the earliest freaking primaries before anybody knows anything is why we're looking at the person that went up against Trump, which got mowed down like crazy.
But why didn't we change that with the Gore election? Why didn't we change that in 2000 election?
About when those primaries are?
Not just primaries, the electoral college. People complained about it then, and during that time they were hanging chads. We had voter suppression. We had the Congressional Black Caucus asked for someone to please challenge this election because of what the black voters had to go through in Florida. Not a single Democrat or Republican senator stood up to do that. And the thing is, if we really want to fix the system, we would. But we have gerrymandering happening, and we have people that are they're counting prison populations. Actually, the organization that I got the prison data from is called Prison Policy Initiative, and they map.
That's a lot of prisons, man.
Yeah, that intern Rose Hare.
When you
and she counted the data, and then I took the data and mapped it and then sequenced it with music, and it's probably one of my best known pieces. And because I got tired of saying
the teamwork
saying
that
things.
you must have had to make that
everything
was amazing.
Well, I'm a conceptual artist, so
I want to do the same one with Banks.
You could do the same one with Banks.
With actually, I was a big anti-Hillary person.
I was an anti-Hillary person.
And
But the thing is,
and she's
the arrogance
she's
though.
such pro. Did you ever see the Nightline thing? And I never talk about politics because I'm a law of attraction. I'm out.
Yeah.
This past one made me think that's not going to be my reality. I'm going to be dead.
Yep.
And what I'm going to do is focus on good conversations with as many people as I can. And I'm going to focus on light and love and how can I help? And I'm not going to watch the freaking news that sets this whole thing up.
Yep.
I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
And so I haven't watched the news for a long time, and I used to be headlong and dive
No,
first
you're
into
not
it.
missing much. I've lost track of a lot of things, like the pop music thing.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to. I mean, this is.
I'm out.
I didn't like reality shows. You know what I mean? I didn't like those. Why would I like this reality show? And
A lot of dude, what I'm saying is the young people, there's a lot of people that don't buy it. I think a lot of people don't buy it.
they don't buy it, but it's still affecting us.
It still is, but that's because the kids who are very, very young now, they're coming up in a way that nobody else has. And I really think that there's power to change things. So,
There's power, but they have to start caring about something.
yeah.
They do have to start caring about something, and there's a lot of kids. I don't want to say they're in a privileged position, but yeah, they're in a privileged position. There's a lot of kids that aren't having to work with their hands. And the most they're doing with their hands is with the keyboard. You know, they're texting or whatever. And when I was younger, in order to be someone who was an activist, you actually had to go march, and you had to do other things. But now people feel like they can be the armchair social activist by posting something. They feel that there's
Social activists.
social network activists,
networks,
and they feel like they can just go to one major march a year. You know, they can go to the women's march one year, and then go to the immigration march next year. No, you got to march all the time, and you got to write. You got to write.
You got to write.
You got to write, and you got to vote, and you got to interact with people.
What's the best march, man, that you can think of? The most like effective, best.
I think the women's march was a failure and a success for different reasons.
What women's march? Was
The
there
big,
one
the
this
big,
year?
the one year or so ago, the one with the pussy hats, right? Yeah, after Trump's election.
Oh,
The one with the
okay.
pussy hats, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, all over the country, all over the world, there were a bunch of these different marches. But it was decentralized. I think they almost did it again. The white women left out the black women and other women of color. In Seattle, they tried really hard to, you know, to acknowledge the native population and other women of color. And you know, people forget that the Me Too movement was started, you know, by a black lady. And Miss Barton, yeah. It's a black woman that started that. Yeah.
Weinstein?
No, Barton.
No, but was this part of the Weinstein?
No, it wasn't part of the Weinstein.
So what was the
It's
the trigger of the whole Me Too thing? Because I don't know.
well, the early Me Too, the black woman that started it, she started it to help black girls. And this is somewhat of a support group to people that have been victims of sexual violence. But then it was picked up, you know, and of course it got bigger. And the problem with, you know, Hollywood being paid attention to and domestic workers not being paid attention to, or, you know, or service workers who may be threatened with deportation if they don't do something. There's a whole sect. That's part of the failure of Me Too. I think it's great that certain people have lost their careers, but let's not pretend and see it as a major success when we have, you know, these low-wage workers that are not going to make the news and that are not going to be talked about. So it's a hard thing.
You're so freaking dedicated to not leaving folks behind, man, and that is amazing.
It's about equity. It's not equality, it's equity. And I actually thought about that today, where that came from. But ever since I was a young kid, I remember going to the barbershop. I was probably 8 or 9. I remember waiting for my turn, and some other guy came in after me. And then I think he was friends with the barber. He was gonna let him go in front of me. I was like, no, wait a second, we were here first. But I think whoever's standing in line, you know,
Should be next.
But that's not how it works.
In Japan, apparently. Have you ever seen one of these videos that shows how well everything works in Japan and how respectful everybody is?
Is that still happening?
Oh, dude, there's a video that I saw on my brother lived in Japan, and he was like, "It's real. It's amazing. They're amazingly respectful."
Yeah.
And anyway, somebody put along this how crowded the subways are, but how perfectly quiet everybody is, and like,
Yeah.
get out of the way as you get on. Anyway.
No, that's just not New York.
Cultural norms. Yeah.
But you know, China may be a little different. In Shanghai or somewhere, people might not be the same as Japan.
Yeah,
You know, those Asian.
I've never been there, so I can't say, but
Yeah.
at least on one video that I saw, it was like, dude, we're in the wild west.
We are the Wild Wild West. I mean, you spend any time in New York. I mean, when they're in rush hour in New York, the subway, I was like, people are jockeying for position so they can get on.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta make.
Oh, you got to?
I gotta.
Well,
I gotta roll in a minute.
man.
Do we have enough here?
No, we don't have enough. But I'm
What do
always
you
looking
mean?
for another host, man, because the best podcasts have somebody that comes on again, and it like kind of expounds on
How long was
more
that?
stuff.
That was more than 45.
I think it was more than 45 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, thanks, Paul
You
Rucker.
need a ride anywhere?